Welcome to the Unmuted Podcast. My name is Jeff. I'm the host of the podcast and also the founder of ScaleHR. Just want to welcome you all here. We have an excellent episode here. It's called Employer Brand is a System, How Technology Shapes the Experience. Yes, we are talking about technology because that's all I ever talk about. But we have an amazing guest here, and I'm going to bring him in shortly. But this is a really good episode because obviously technology is a big part of our world in HR. And so I just want to shape the topic. But before I do, I just want to mention that our podcast lives on YouTube, also on our website, and we are going to be also launching on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and then other platforms as well. So that's going to reach a further audiences, which is fantastic. And so, so we talk about all things HR tech, AI, of course, leadership and world of work. And so all of our guests are from all over the world, mostly HR leaders, practitioners, but then we also bring in other special experts who might be experts in HR tech, leadership, AI, and so forth. And so once again, this episode, Employer Brand is a System, How Technology Shapes the Experience. And so I just want to just set the stage here. There's two key points. And so the first key point that I want to make, and so for those of you who actually know me know that I've done a lot of work in this area of employer brand in my career. And so now employer brand isn't just a message anymore. And so for a long time, employer brand was always treated like a marketing exercise, career site copy, employee value prop statements, social media posts, and so forth. But today, candidates and also employees, so they're very, very important, candidates, right, future employees, and also current employees don't always experience your brand through messaging. They always experience it through a system. Is it easy to apply? How respectful does the hiring process feel? What about onboarding? What about the overall employee experience? And then how modern or broken your HR tools are. That's the first point. Second point is today you can argue that technology is the actual experience. And so whether HR intends to or not, the HR tech stack has become the infrastructure of an employer brand. Every workflow, handoff, delay, interaction reinforces or undermines trust. Very, very important. So today we're going to unpack how technology shapes the real employee and candidate experience and what HR leaders need to think about differently if they want their brand to actually show up in practice. So that was a lot of, as I always say, word salad, but I thought it was pretty good. But I'm really thrilled to have Phill Strazzulla here today. And then I'm going to have him come in and talk about what he does because it's absolutely awesome. And so Phill, thanks for being here.
Thanks, Jeff. Yeah, it's super exciting. I have a strong affinity towards employer branding as well. I started an employer branding company actually like 12 years ago. And Today I run a business called SelectSoftware Reviews where we help HR professionals find and buy the right tech. So we have reviews on our website. You can talk to one of our advisors one-on-one for free. And then we actually are soft launching a GPT that's trained on over 1,000 HR tech buying cycles that you can access today, even on our website.
So that was the answer to my first question, actually. So please tell me a bit about yourself. And so you already answered that question, but is there anything else that, that you want to sort of mention? I mean, I know that I think we've known each other for a couple of years now. I think I've been on a couple of webinars with you guys. And, I was really excited when you mentioned that you were launching like an AI tool. So maybe talk a bit about that, because I think that is really interesting, because I know, and this is off topic, but, I think it's really important for our audience here to understand that it's really difficult when it comes to building your HR tech stack. It's not easy. It's really hard. And so I guess I just want to hear your thoughts on why you are doing this, what problem is it solving, and then how people can actually access it. And then, by the way, so we will actually put the links in the commentary in the summary.
Yeah, sounds great. So I started off in this ecosystem as a fractional talent acquisition professional. Biggest claim to fame is helping a company scale from 300 to 3,000 employees in a little over a year. And I've just bought a ton of systems, applicant tracking systems and sourcing systems and onboarding systems and payroll systems, all this stuff. And it's just really, really difficult, even for somebody like myself, who's a self-taught programmer. I used to work in venture capital where my job was just to stay on top of what's going on in technology. It's still difficult to vet vendors and figure out, is this one right for me or not? And if you go on the internet, there's lots of reviews out there. I think there's lots of different shades of bias, whether you're talking about user reviews where people are paid to write reviews. If you go into your local community, many times you'll get opinions from people that are perhaps not experts. They just like or dislike a system based on their idiosyncratic experience. And so what I really set out to do was build a company that had the best data about HR technology, that came at it from a practitioner's perspective of, hey, I've bought software, I've done it right, I've done it wrong, and then be an efficient matching system so that you don't have to talk to 10 vendors, or you're not going to buy the wrong vendor. You can talk to 2 or 3 of the best fit ones, and you can actually buy the right one at the right price too for your business.
Fantastic. So I absolutely love it. And so I know that in my work, obviously, I've done on a ton in helping companies figure out their HR tech stacks. And it's really difficult because you can look at 10 different platforms and they all look similar. Some are different, some have this, some have that. But then how do you really get into it and really truly assess it properly? It's like a full-time job, time 10. So it's really hard. So great stuff. So let's get into our topic. And so once again, it's the employer brand is a system, how technology shapes the experience. So my first question for you, from your vantage point, obviously, looking at hundreds of HR platforms and talking to buyers, where do you most often see technology strengthening an employer brand, and where does it quietly break down?
Sure. The breakdown is more top of mind because somebody literally 15 minutes ago messaged me on LinkedIn. We run a job board for HR professionals, peopleopsjobs.io. And this woman is a director of HR, and she DM'd me. I don't know her that well, but she was just like, I got this one-way video interview link. And she actually sent me like a video of her video. And she's like, these things are so awkward and I feel so dehumanized. And, I can't believe people are doing this, blah, blah, blah. And, the funny thing is this technology has been around for a very long time at this point, like almost 15 years. And I think that this same technology can improve your employer brand and it can drastically hurt it. If you send the link to the wrong person, aka, director and above level person, that's probably the wrong person to send it to. If you send it without the right context, we're interested in you. We want to learn more about you beyond just the resume. We're not just sending this to the 9,000 people that applied. Like, we've actually cut this down to the top 5%, but there's still 50 people. We can't do 50 phone screens. So we want to understand who are the 5 to 10 people that we really want to spend time with. Here's the process. Here's what you can get out of this. Here are the expectations, so that it's not just like this link and it's like, should I re-record this 600 times until I get every and ah out of it? There needs to be the right context around it. That can be a positive thing because it's like, instead of getting rejected because I'm not the lucky 5 to 10 out of the 50, I get an opportunity to kind of pitch myself and go beyond the resume. And that's a really good thing. Versus, I get this link, it's super awkward, and I'm wondering, how many times should I re-record it? What are they really looking for here? Maybe even like, what should I wear when I do this thing?
Yeah.
That can be a super negative experience. And there's, I think, countless examples of this where technology can be really, really great, and it can also destroy the candidate experience and therefore your employer brand as well.
So you're saying a little bit about context, I think too, because if this person would have gotten a really nice message saying, hey, you're top 5, whatever, I'm just saying, we just want to just learn more about you. And this is the best way for us to do that. And by the way, if you feel like wearing a suit, go for it. If you want to wear jeans and a t-shirt, fine. Like that kind of contact, but give more information. I think that probably would have gone a long way, even when the technology is the same, right? So context is everything, I guess. But if you just send a link and it's like, what the hell is this,
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, right now, one of the biggest things that companies are struggling with is too many applicants. And so, unfortunately, it's becoming really, really hard to figure out who we should actually hire and also leave the application open for long enough, because most jobs that we're seeing now, they're open for 48 hours or less because they're getting hundreds, sometimes thousands of applicants, because most people looking for jobs now are using some form of AI to help them scalably apply for jobs.
Yeah.
And so if you then, as the company, if one of your solves is, okay, we're going to get more applicants, but we're going to kind of cut it down to the top 5 to 10%. And then we want to like learn more about you before we do the phone screen. I think that's like a very rational thing to do. And if you explain that correctly, then I think people get it. And they're like, okay, this is great, because usually I'm just applying and, I've got a 1% chance, but now I've got a 20% chance of getting an interview. I just need to sort of tell my story through this video interview platform.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I just wanted to segue to the next question, which is a really important one, because, and this connects to what you just talked about, but when you're an organization, I say you're an HR team, talent people, you have your own point of view on what your employer brand is, right? And usually there's a disconnect between what you think and then what candidates actually experience and think, and that's a problem, right? Because the idea is for those to match. So what are the biggest disconnects you see between how companies think candidates experience their brand and what candidates actually experience through hiring technology?
I think a lot of it's very well intentioned, but there are just like small pieces missing that create this divide. And by the way, like in business school, I had this professor that would always say, like, there's 3 conversations happening whenever you're talking to somebody. There's a conversation in your head, their head, and then what's actually being said. And like 2 people can walk away from a conversation saying something completely or meaning something completely different. And like, it's so hard to be on the same page, especially in a complex system like talent acquisition. So, just go back to this example we were just talking about. I would guess that the talent acquisition team implemented this video interview software because they're like, let's give candidates the opportunity to go beyond their resume, to share more about who they are, etc. And I'm getting DMs from people being like, this is terrible, right? Like somebody took the time out to message me, some random guy on the internet that they don't know, about how terrible this is, because they just want some place to vent, and some sort of reassurance that they weren't alone. So I think that my advice to talent acquisition teams is you obviously want to look at, your Glassdoor reviews, what people are saying about your interview process. You probably want to have a more systematized way of getting that feedback in a scalable way as well. So sending a quick survey, it could be 2 or 3 questions, could be 2, give us 1 to 5 stars and then any commentary, and it's totally anonymous to anybody who goes through the application process. You want to talk to people who are recent hires as well in a one-on-one setting. Ideally, you want somebody who's sort of a third party who can do this, because people are afraid of HR and they're afraid of talent acquisition even. And so if you have a fractional person that you're working with, or somebody in your company who is sort of a Switzerland type person, they can go and they can say, like, what was the application process like? When did you hear about us? What were your first impressions of us? What were your impressions of the interview process, of the hiring process, of the onboarding, etc.? And that's going to, when you do 10 of those interviews, you're going to start to see a lot of themes emerge. And those are the things that you want to look at and address. And some of those things should be amplified. Like, hey, like, this company has amazing benefits, but like, I didn't hear about it until I got my offer letter. Okay, we should put that on the career site, job descriptions, etc. And some of that stuff is what we've been talking about, the video interview. It's like negatives.
Just a question for you, just a follow-up question on that. So one thing that I've always said, over the years, and this hasn't changed, honestly, is that they disconnect between what companies think their brand is and then what is being perceived sort of out like in the market, is due to the organization's thought process on what that is. And so, so what I mean by that is they over rely on the system as almost like efficiency. So they just want to get stuff out. Boom, 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 just get the process done. They don't really think about what the person on the other end thinks, right? So, or feels. So did they ever stop to say, wait a minute, that makes sense? Are they going to understand that? Does that align with that brand? They're so busy doing stuff, task management and workflows and all of that kind of stuff. Do you think that's still a problem? We have AI, which was obviously, I believe it's been awesome, but there's still some drawbacks, obviously, because I think people still need to perceive that it's a human experience. So how do you feel about that? Is that still valid? Am I off in left field, or is that still a core problem?
It's a massive problem. And the reality is that most HR and talent acquisition teams are drastically under-resourced. And so your to-do list is always 800 things. What you're talking about is really a it's not something you have to solve today. It's more of a strategic, longer term payoff, and a bigger project that requires deep work and lots and lots of work over time to have a result. And so I think it's just easy to deprioritize it versus, hey, we got to have this meeting, we got to have this employee relations issue, this rec has been open for 90 days, etc. So it's just easy to not have those conversations, but it's extremely important. And this is where, I'm not a fractional person. I keep saying hire a fractional person, but I think this is where a fractional person can help a lot, because it is sometimes nice to have a third party do this. And it's something that's easy to kind of chunk off, find somebody who's done this 10 times before, do some interviews, understand the reality of your employer brand and why that's happening, and probably do some systems work after that.
That sounds good. And so when you're looking at technology, so say you're, an HR team and you're actually going to be evaluating new tools, what questions should they be asking if they want technology to reinforce trust, consistency, the employer brand? So what are some questions that they need to be asking when they're looking at different tools, if they want to do those things?
I think the philosophy of the product is super important. So there's an applicant tracking system called Team Taylor where, it was really started to be employer brand first. And that was sort of why the company was started in the first place. And so they have this, really wonderful career site module. It's super easy to apply for jobs. The candidate is very much in mind. And so those sorts of softer data points are important. And then also just looking at from the candidate perspective, really putting your empathy hat on and going through the workflows that, not just your recruiting team is going to use, but also the candidates themselves. And comparing that with what you've seen best in class from your talent competitors, from other best in class companies. Think about, companies that probably have to be really, really good at recruiting, and what are they doing? And some of those companies can get away with a bad brand. I would say Google might not have the best recruiting process because it's Google and people want to work there. But what's the really fast growing company in your city that probably has to hire a lot of people and is probably really, really smart about it? What are they doing?
So do you recommend that when you're looking at new tools, so let's say, hiring tools, okay, would you suggest that the hiring team, actually take their processes, and then when they're actually evaluating tools, do you actually say to the prospect, these are our processes, can you show us how your tool will work?
Yeah, without a doubt. And that's one of the core pieces of advice I give. Don't just let the salesperson do the demo, because it's going to be phenomenal. You want to go through, okay, here's how we post jobs, and here's where we post them to, and here's the question we like to ask in the application, and but people apply through mobile in our industry, and blah blah blah. All these things are really important. So you want to have a checklist, and then you want to go through one by one and just make sure that this system is going to be right for you.
Yeah, and I've done that, and become really easy. Which ones are your sort of top 5? Because the ones that fall on their face are the ones that can't do it. So it's just that simple. And yeah. Okay, so so shifting gears here. If an organization wanted to intentionally design an employer brand as a system, from attraction to onboarding to ongoing engagement, what principles should guide their technology choices?
I think that you want to have just a lot of empathy for an understanding of the user journey from the candidate perspective. So, obviously you're going to be looking at the sort of talent personas you're going after, how you're going after them. Is it job boards? Is it inbound? Is it sourcing? Is it third-party recruiters, et cetera? And what are the, the workflows and things like that you need? But really understanding from the candidate perspective, what do they do when they start to research your employer brand? What's the application process, the hiring process, the offer letter, the onboarding? And I would use that, especially through employer branding lens, to understand what tech is right for us.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. So this is the question that's everybody, which is, if our viewers can learn just one thing about anything that we've talked about today, so what is that one thing?
I think it's
just one.
Yeah, it's having a better understanding for what's actually your employer brand through talking to candidates and employees. And you're going to hear weird stuff in each of these conversations that are sort of idiosyncratic and one-off. But when you have 5 or 10 of these, you're going to hear the same things over and over again. And that's the truth.
And that's a really cool recommendation, because there's this powerful thing called AI, where you can take all of your data and just pump it into it. It can give you trends and tell you what's going on. So I think it's way easier now than it used to be, obviously, to collect information, evaluate it, and so forth. And so I think, and on the employer brand front, it's really important, everyone, that it's both the candidate, so the job candidate, future staff, plus the actual employee experience, so you have to look at both. So then you can't just look at one and then not the other, because the goal is to match the actual experiences, both sides. So the last thing is to have candidate experience is viewed as one, and then employee experience is opposite or different, because then you're going to have problems. And so I think technology plays a big role in that. Just any last parting thoughts, Phill?
I think that a lot of this stuff can be quite overwhelming, and my recommendation would be to just take it one step at a time. So first, understand your employer brand, your candidate journey from each of these people's perspectives, and that will inform what you have to do next. And what you have to do next probably is buy some sort of system, and just take that one step at a time as well. Don't feel like you have to do it tomorrow. Don't let it overwhelm you. Just, it's hey, we got to do some research. We got to do some demos. We got to do some, step by step, versus, oh my gosh, it's a lot of work to do all this stuff. I'm just going to put it off till tomorrow, because tomorrow never comes.
Yeah, and the other thing that people can do also is go to a website called SelectSoftware Reviews.com, which is Phil's company, and so I recommend going there as well. So Phill, thanks for being here. I really appreciate it. So this is the Unmuted podcast, and my name is Jeff. I'm the host. We drop new episodes every Thursday. This is year 3 of our podcast, and we're going to get to 100 this year, episodes. And so all of our episodes live on YouTube. Also, our website, GoScaleHR.com. And we're also going to be on Apple Podcast and Spotify coming up soon. And so, Phill, thanks for being here.
Thanks, Jeff.